Hey, welcome back to Eat, Learn, Love. Thanks for joining me again for another video. Today I wanted to talk more about our homeschool and just kind of share with you how we do our morning time. If you're new to the idea of morning time or group time or even homeschool in general, I'll just explain a little bit what it is and then we'll get into what we use specifically. My desk here below the camera that you can't see, and it's covered with all of our stuff, so I'm gonna try and not make a lot of noise picking each item up. But just to begin, group time or morning time is just when, as a homeschool, all of your students are together to do different subjects or things together. I keep saying I'm sorry, I'm gonna work on that. So for group time, a lot of times people call it morning time or morning basket. We're calling it morning meeting this year. I'm just trying to make it sound a little more mature. I don't know if that's working or not, but so group time, morning basket, morning meeting, circle time, any of those things you could call it. Some other people call it power hour. I'm trying to think of any other terms I've heard. I'm sure there's more, but it's just meaning a time when you're all together doing things as a group. So for us, we have two girls doing 8th grade work, a girl doing 5th grade work, a boy doing 3rd grade work, and a boy doing 1st grade work. So we have quite a variety of ages and grades. And so there aren't a whole lot of things that we can do as a group this year. But I am trying to keep us to have a time when we all can come together and just enjoy certain subjects or topics as a family. So for us, that includes reading, read aloud time, and that can be anything from fiction, nonfiction, a Christian biography. I mean, it really could include anything. We have some science fiction and just some fun books, some poetry, that kind of thing. So read aloud time is one of the things that we like to keep as a group. They do individual reading time, but the read aloud time as a group I really feel helps us stay bonded. The other things we do as a group are a Bible lesson. Each child could do their own Bible lesson through the easy peasy all-in-one homeschool we're using, but I've decided to just print out those lessons plans and do them as a group so that we can enjoy that, studying God's Word and learning these stories together as a family. That is important to me. The other stuff we do together is memory work. We are learning a couple different things, and I'll go over that in just a minute, but I like to have us all learning the same things. Again, just more bonding, and I always enjoy including memory work in their schooling, and I just really enjoy having memory work as a part of our group time because they're all learning something together, and it's really fun to be able to feed off each other and remembering the different things they're memorizing. Another thing we're doing together is hymn time. We haven't gotten so much into hymn study, but we are just working through hymns, or right now just a hymn for the month of September. And hymns are important to us because we are a church-going family, and our church does sing some hymns with some more modern, praise and worship stuff. So when we sing the hymns at church, it's really fun to see my kids' eyes light up when they recognize the hymn that we've studied in the past or memorized in the past or learned the tune of, and so they can sing along. I know they know a lot of the more modern stuff, but it is really neat to have them learn the older hymns. I learned those growing up, and they're pretty special to me, so I like being able to teach my kids those as well. I know most of the tunes for all the ones we've learned so far, and the one or two that we didn't know, I do have a piano so we can catch the tune on there and learn it as a group. So what I'll do is just go over how our morning works, the flow of things, and then I'll just wrap it up. It's not going to be a very long video. I just wanted to be able to share this aspect with you since I already talked about the majority of the other stuff we're doing, the easy peasy and the Matthew C. So this just kind of like rounds out what we're doing each week. So we meet anywhere between 8 and 9:30 in the morning for our morning meeting. And it just depends on the day what we've got going on. I try to get to the gym a couple of times before school starts each week. And there are some days when I go later in the day. But on the days that I go early, we come back and everybody's eating about 8 or 8:30. And then we get together for our morning meeting. The kids are already dressed, beds are made, hair is brushed, things are picked up, they've done their morning chores, that kind of thing. I try to do all that before we sit down together as a group so there aren't any distractions and we don't feel like we have to rush to get to something else so we can get on with our day. So the first thing we do is we will sit and do our Bible lesson. Like I said, I just printed out the lesson plans from the Easy Peasy online. It does break it down, grades 1 through 4 and then grades 5 through 8. So, but we just do all the lessons. So I have here, this year it's poetry. And so it explains L is for the lower levels, M is for the middle school type ages. And we just cover both. So we'll read the passage that it says, and then I'll just go over all the questions or any discussion points from both middle and the lower levels so that everything's covered and we can reach all the age groups that we have. Right now we're in the book of Luke. We're reading through the different stories, so it is kind of neat. We went through Mark in our church's youth group last year, and so my oldest has already heard some of these stories out of the book of Mark, so it's fun to hear her perspective and comparing Mark and Luke, the two different books, similarities and whatnot. And then also as a group, just everybody's different perspective on the story that we're discussing and what they all bring to that. The Bible we're reading out of this year is my Inspired Journal Bible. I received this from a friend a few years ago. I think it's from Amazon. They sell it. It's the NLT version, which isn't a version that I particularly enjoy for Bible study, but as far as for reading for different ages, I do enjoy the easiness of the wordage or the word choice. It's a little bit easier for my 6-year-old to understand, but still, my 13-year-old, can study a little bit as well. The next thing we do, I should say we open in prayer. Usually I have one of the kids open in prayer. I don't typically open the group in prayer. I usually come to a morning meeting, it's chaos right before, and then I sit down and I don't feel ready to begin. So I usually ask one of the kids to pray just so we can all get our hearts and minds focused on what we need to get it focused on in order to start with our Bible lesson. So the kids will pray, then we do our Bible lesson. And then immediately after our Bible lesson, we go into our memory work. So we go from something pretty serious and, formal to then into something fun. Not that the Bible study isn't fun, but you know what I mean. Just focused and serious where I have everyone's attention. Now we're moving into memory work where it's a little more light and easygoing. We are learning a few different things this year. Right now we just finished memorizing the preamble. That is really fun to hear my 6-year-old recite. There are a lot of big words in there for him, and he still says some of his R's like W's, so it's pretty fun to hear him say the preamble. But anyways, so we just finished memorizing that. We'll review it a few more times before we put it away for a while. I have kids coming and going, so if you hear or see anybody, that's what's happening. So we'll go over it a few more times before we move it aside, and then we'll review it in a month or so. And but I picked the preamble to the Constitution because we haven't really studied any government yet, but I do feel in current events that knowing the purpose of the Constitution is important, especially for my older kids as they move into more political things and just things that they're hearing more and seeing more in the news or in the text that they're reading. Just knowing the purpose for the Constitution and just what it all encompasses, I think is very important, especially as a Christian young person. Like I said, we haven't studied government or the Constitution yet. We've briefly touched on it in U.S. history, but not in-depth study. So understanding the preamble, and we've discussed the words and what they mean in each of the lines, I just think is important for a Christian youth to know and understand. Anyways, we also are learning a poem by Robert Frost. We just finished up this one as well. We'll review it a few more times before we kind of move it aside and start a new one. This is a super simple, catchy poem. There's only 4 stanzas, so it's not terribly difficult, but it still is pretty descriptive as far as what's happening in the poem, and I like the language used and just the descriptive terms, and it's very poetic. Next, we are memorizing the order of the planets. This one was easy. They learned it right away, but we haven't gotten too much into astronomy yet, so I just thought learning the order of the planets was a good, introduction to it. We are doing Earth science this year. I don't know, I haven't looked that far into the scope and sequence to see if it touches on anything as far as space. It may or may not, I don't know. But I remember enjoying memorizing it in elementary school, and the mnemonic device that went with it. My very eager mother just served us noodles or nachos or, whatever silly phrase you can remember. So I taught the kids that, and then we learned the actual order of the planets, and all 5 of the kids got it very quickly. It isn't terribly hard to understand. We are also learning a Bible verse. Right now it's 1 Corinthians 10:31. You can't really see it. I printed this out several summers ago. It was kid-friendly verses to memorize during the summer, but we never learned them during the summer. So I'm just using them as a checklist for verses this year. We're memorizing, like I said, 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Just a good starter verse for the beginning of the year. And they all either knew it already or memorized it very quickly, so it wasn't hard. So we're going to pull out some new things to be memorizing soon. We did at one point start learning the Nicene Creed, and I do plan to go back to that. We've only gotten 2 stanzas into it, so I do want to go back and eventually finish that. That is a longer piece and very heavy as far as the theology in it. So we do stop and break it down and talk about what it means. So it does take us quite a bit longer to learn new lines from that. I also have a Baptist catechism for boys and girls. It's a question and answer thing. We did a couple questions. It's like, who made you? God made me. Why did God make? Or what else did God make? God made all things. That kind of thing. And I do plan to go back to that at some point too. There's just a lot of questions, so we didn't cover them all. We only did 5 or 6, just to kind of ease into it. The other thing we are learning, let's see here, is a hymn. This month it's All the Way My Savior Leads Me, and I like that one. It's an easy tune, so the kids have all quickly picked it up. The language is a bit older and it's very poetic, so I think that's good exposure for them too. It's written by Fanny Crosby, and yeah. So they each have a personalized memory work folder. It's just a portfolio type thing, and it just has a copy of everything we're learning in there. The preamble, poem, order of the planets, and the hymn. And so they just pull that out, and when we're learning new parts, they read it over with me, and when we're reviewing what we know, then they just set it aside. But that's all for memory work right now. The other stuff we do together, like I said, is reading aloud. I'm just going to show you each of the things that we are either currently using or will be using in our read aloud time. And that's pretty much it. Then I'll wrap it up. So the first thing we're reading is The Hiding Place. It covers both a Christian biography and a historical nonfiction for us. We aren't very far into it, but it is something that I read when I was, I think, in high school. And so I just wanted the kids to read this. We got this copy from my mom's house. She has a ton of books in her basement from my grandma, and so it's a nice perk to having grandma close by is that we can borrow from her library. Another one we're reading, we started last year, we still aren't done with it, is The Hobbit. There are a lot of interesting names and places in here, and the words used can be tricky for the younger kids, so it is taking us quite a while to get through it. The chapters are long, and let's see, we're on page 140, and there are 300 and some pages. 305 pages? 305 pages, or 306 pages. And so I'm hoping to get through it this year, but I don't even know if we'll finish it this year. It is definitely something that takes a lot of time to read with a group of 5 kids of all different ages. But we do like it. It is fun. And that would be like a sci-fi for us or whatever. Another science fiction is When the Tripods Came. We just started this. I have never read it. It was on a reading list, a recommended reading list. And I like it so far. It's pretty interesting because it was written in, let me just find the copyright on it is 1988. But it's very, it's written as if it was a movie from today. So I like it. It's just a fun one to read, an imaginative one. Another fiction we're reading is The Princess and the Goblin. This is another book borrowed from my mom's house. This is, I think, second edition. A very old copy. 1930, 1920, 19 what? 1907? 1907. But it is a very descriptive, imaginative book, and we are enjoying the story on it. Another one we have read in years past, and I plan to, cycle back in, is this Tales from Shakespeare by Charles and Mary Lamb. We've read different selections from it, but we do enjoy reading them, and everybody can understand them. They're fun stories. Another fiction is The Finn Family Moomin Troll, and this is pretty fun, very whimsical. I saw this on another list too, and I finally bought it this year, and it hits all age groups that we have in our homeschool. So it's fun, and everyone is enjoying it. It's just about a goofy family, not a goofy, but a made-up family that finds a magical top hat. So we're on chapter 3, and it's pretty fun. And lastly, not necessarily read aloud, but something else I want to bring into our group time once we become more established and on a better schedule is this Drawing with Children. I had seen it from the library, checked it out ahead of time. It looked really neat, so I plan to work it into our group time at some point. Right now, this time of the year, I have 2 girls in volleyball, and so we hurry through our mornings to get everything done that needs to be done, and there aren't a whole lot of extras right now because in the afternoons they either have volleyball practice or a volleyball game, and the games are usually early in the afternoon, like 3:30, 4, so it is me that has to take all the kids to either watch the game or help work at the game. Thankfully their practice is right across the street, so they don't have to go far for that. But because we do have to pack up early in the afternoon so often right now, I'm just trying to get done the things that absolutely need to get done, and then once volleyball season is over, which is mid-October, then we will bring in the extra things that we would really like to add in. I could argue that those things are necessities too, but I'm just going really basic right now. So whatever Easy Peasy covers and what Matthew C covers, and then this little bit of group time is what I'm considering a necessity right now. And this week, actually, my husband is off, so we kind of eased off on schoolwork. We really haven't done much as far as formal schooling. We did go to the dunes one day and kind of, I'm counting that as schooling. We looked at different rocks. We skipped rocks. They looked at little minnows or tadpoles in the water. We hiked dunes, checked out the elevation and the number of tons of sand that had to be brought in to create those hills. So there was learning going on, so we're counting that. But anyways, this is what we do for group time. Like I said, we're calling it morning meeting. It occurs sometime, mid-morning. And it's just a time for us to be all together, learning together before we split up and go do our individual things. And this can take anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour, just depending on how much reading aloud we want to do, how much cooperation we're all giving, and then how many interruptions we have. Sometimes we get a phone call that we need to answer. Sometimes, people have to use the bathroom. Sometimes we have to pause and get a snack. Sometimes we have to break up a fight. All kinds of different things can cause it to go longer than maybe what we planned, but that's okay because it's still a lot of learning happening, and I really like it, and I don't always get it in every day, and it seems like lately I've gotten it in a lot less than I wanted. But again, that's just the time of the year we're in where we have a busy schedule, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So I would like to rotate in more things and be able to just be more leisurely about it. So in the next few weeks, we plan to do that. So if you have any questions about our morning time, feel free to ask below. I'll see I will do my best to answer them. And if you want to know where we got any of these particular things, or I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to discuss, but or to ask about, I guess. If you have any questions on the items we're using, let me know. I don't really have anything to link to down below. If I think of any of the book lists, or can find any of those book lists that I found some of these books on, I will link to them below, but I don't know offhand where I saw them. I just had seen them at one point on a list and then wrote the names of the book down, and then finally ordered them this year. Anyways, that's what we do, and we've been doing this for a few years now, different times of the day, and it includes different subjects, but this year this is what we're including and how we're doing it. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you like these kinds of videos, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications for when new videos come out. Again, any questions, any comments, feel free to put that below. And thanks for watching. Have a good week. Bye.